Do you think that part is fair, what the lieutenant governor wants to do there?
Absolutely. I mean, if these are political issues, and if Delta's making their political decision based on what they think is their best interest, then certainly state of Georgia and Lieutenant Governor has his right to do the same thing.
All right. What he's saying is that is Attorney General Georgia to punish, or Texas, I should say, to punish a company for, in this case, keeping its distance from the NRA, or to not offer rewards for NRA members there. I'm so glad I have Herman Cain here, because you think about it, Herman Cain is, of course, a celebrated presidential candidate. We all remember that, and him and his inspirational campaign, but also a celebrated businessman, worked for decades in the pizza business and never gained a pound. So that alone tells you how great a business leader he is as well. So, Herman, great to see you.
Thanks, Neil.
And I know I always, tick off people on this issue. I'm not making a statement about the NRA. I am saying is using a company's policy for or against the NRA, against them when it comes to tax benefits it might enjoy in a state. What do you think of that?
I don't agree with Delta's decision for the following reasons. First, I believe they acted prematurely, and as Katie Pavlich pointed out, they acted prematurely to an online mob. Secondly, what about the customers who fly Delta? They may get a bigger backlash from 2 million milers like me versus a backlash from NRA members.
And I agree with that. Then let them take that point. That's what it is. That's where they will have to pay the repercussions of this decision, good or ill. I do find it's another leap for a state that takes a tax break that the company enjoys and to add that to the pile. What do you think?
I would agree with you. And look, I don't think that the state of Georgia is going to take that away immediately because of the way the whole cycle works, but yet it's now going to allow plenty of time for that whole idea to be talked about and debated. But then the other reason that I think that they acted prematurely, I don't know an NRA member who gives a, I got to keep it clean for you, who gives a flip about a discount. And that's what this is all over. Right. Discounts.
But companies, I don't know whether at Godfather's Pizza you ever had to deal with this. If a controversy comes up, companies abhor controversy. They try to stay away with it no matter their political viewpoint. You're quite right. The online mob that developed against any company and its association with the NRA. And a lot of these guys just run for the hills. And I understand it. I always, regret it because it's short-lived. What I regret more, though, is this move on the part of politicians to compound it. And I agree, as a free marketeer as yourself, let them see in the world of business the effect this has on them for doing so, and leave it at that. And I agree like you that I don't think it's going to move the needle much to either advance or hurt their cause, although in Georgia it could hurt them with some customers there or advocates who are big fans of the Second Amendment and don't like what this company appears to be doing. But leave it at that. What do you say? Yes,
I agree. Politicians should stay out of this at this particular point because they don't know all of the facts. One of my big beefs with this whole debate is that nobody is looking at what the NRA, the National Rifle Association, is already doing for school safety. They have a school shields program that I don't hear anybody talking about. I wonder if, I'm not on the Delta board or anything like that, I wonder if they know about all of the safety programs like the School Shield program that the NRA, National Rifle Association, already has. This online mob obviously doesn't know about it, and they don't care, and they will never talk about it because they have decided, judge and jury, that the NRA is the problem, and that's just flat out wrong, Neil.
But you have already, but just to be clear, you have taken the matter into your own hands, saying, well, I'm not going to fly Delta, right, for a perfectly different reason, right?
I didn't say that. I said they haven't realized the backlash from its customers yet. That might be.
But would you be less, I'm sorry, maybe I misheard you in the beginning there, but would you be less inclined to fly Delta now? What am I talking? You're a guy who flies private, but if you did fly commercial, would you be less inclined to fly Delta now given this decision?
No. And Neil, I fly commercial more than I fly private. Let's set the record straight here.
Okay, fine.
And no, I'm not going to give up on Delta, but I am going to send a letter or a memo to the CEO and let them know how I, as a frequent Delta flyer, feel about this knee-jerk reaction that they did.
All right. One last thing I want to get your.
Agree.
All right, fine. The president is in a dust-up with his attorney general again and doesn't like the way he handled this separate investigation going on now. I think you know the backstory on that, but he is tweeting up a storm against the guy. It's happened again and again, where he's obviously none too pleased with his attorney general. If that were you, Herman, getting the butt of these attacks from the President of the United States, you were a cabinet member, he's tweeting about you morning, noon, and night, would you quit?
No. I would make sure that I had a conversation with my boss to find out, is there some fire to the smoke? That's what I would do.
Let's assume there is. Let's assume there is. And he can't quite tell him you're fired, but he'd really be happy if you quit.
Well, I wouldn't quit. I'm not a quitter, and I don't think Jeff Sessions is a quitter. And I think that you know, the tweeting and some of this that the president is doing, not happy with some of the things that are going on, that's one issue, but I don't think Jeff Sessions is thinking about quitting. He would have to get a whole lot more than some angry tweets. But if you're humiliated
in the press every day, and I'm not taking sides of this issue, but I mean, if your boss has made it pretty clear to the world that he's not a fan of you, I mean, I don't know how you handle that, you know, running your pizza empire, but I'm sure you would be very direct with them. You know, you're doing a lousy job, or you're not up to snuff, or let's say I was working for you and you realize there are a lot of missing pizzas. You would say, Neil, you've got to go. You're eating all our product. But I'm just saying, I'm looking at this, Herman, I'm thinking, what about Jeff Sessions' dignity? I mean, you know?
Neil, I disagree with you. I think this is just noise. I really do.
Oh, really?
I think it's just noise, and I think some people are
You would not take that kind of noise, Herman, and you know it. You're a very no, seriously, you're a very upright guy. You know, you don't take guff from anyone. And I just think that if that was thrown at you, regardless of what's from the president, you would be in brief company. I think it would be, you'd be out of there.
You know what my attitude was during my career? I'm going to prove the negative criticism to be wrong. That's why I wouldn't quit. And I happen to believe that that's probably what Jeff Sessions is doing also.
Okay. We'll just see about that. But you and I are very familiar with each other, Herman. We, you know, I had the same burden of reading a prompter. You were running a corporate empire, but we had the same kind of basic DNA. Always good seeing you, Herman. Thank you very, very much.